Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson, the Center Square's state government reporter. And in today's final segment for Washington in Focus Daily, the Professional Educator Standards Board, what they call PESB, is rewriting the rules. And the superintendent, if you have a child in a school district, um, the superintendent in your school district could be on the hook here for this. It was brought to my attention that this week there are 2 days of meetings, Thursday and Friday, by this board. And on Friday, they are taking a final vote on changes to the Washington Administrative Code, the WAC, that will give basically state bureaucrats the power to discipline and potentially even fire state school superintendents. This has to do with House Bill 1296. You may recall this was passed by majority Democrats during the 2025 legislative session to basically undo the Parental Bill of Rights, which they had adopted a year before. And this is to say, schools, if they want to keep secrets from parents, if the child says, don't tell mom and dad that I've asked you to call me Bobby, not Susie, at school, or I've asked to speak with a counselor about my gender confusion, you can't tell my parents. This obviously has caused a lot of controversy, and that's why we have our initiative going to the ballot this November for voters. But right now, regardless of the ballot measure, and regardless of the fact that we have the Department of Justice looking into our Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, we have this board at the urging of our Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction and Superintendent Chris Rakedall, urging them to say, you must comply with 1296, and we have to make sure that superintendents know if they're not toeing the line on this gender identity stuff, that we can remove them from office. It will be deemed misconduct. And that's what this PESB board is voting on Friday afternoon. So I had an opportunity to speak with Vicki Murray at Washington Policy Center. She is their Education Center director. She's trying to bring some attention to this. Here's part of that conversation.
This is just the latest fallout from House Bill 1296, passed last year by the legislature, that gutted the Parental Bill of Rights. So not only are we, basically advancing a policy to keep parents in the dark. And Washington, the people of Washington over and over again have said they don't want this. This is why we passed the Parents' Bill of Rights, to begin with. Schools cannot keep secrets from the parents. Buried in HB 1296, which rolled back, gutted the Parents' Bill of Rights, there is a whole section that says that the Professional Educator Standards Board, or PESB, is responsible for making sure that the Washington Administrative Code and other rules conform with the new legislation. And so they were tasked by this law to basically hold superintendents accountable. And let's be very clear about what this law is doing, what it means by accountability. It doesn't mean that we're going to be accountable to parents, or that we're going to hold superintendents, make them accountable to the local school boards. They're going to be accountable to Olympia and Olympia only. And that notion has been rejected time and time again by the people of Washington and by Washington parents.
So one of those school districts deemed out of compliance with all this is Kennewick. The Kennewick School Board has voted to say we're not going to allow boys in our girls' bathrooms and sports, and we're not going to embrace the gender ideology, the pronoun mandates from OSPI. They've received warning letters in the past from OSPI basically saying you're out of compliance. They push back saying, well, we're in compliance with federal guidelines and what the Trump administration has said on this, and we're waiting for further directive. So I had a conversation today with Kennewick School Board President Gabe Galbraith about this.
they're ultimately trying to get rid of anyone who's pushing back on them, right? I mean, you have local elected leaders in their community who are tasked with hiring a superintendent to carry out the mission of that school district. And now you're essentially threatening a superintendent with willful noncompliance when they work for the school board. So the state is coming in here essentially trying to dig their hand in local control and essentially threaten these superintendents with these things. And it's they're just encroaching way too far. And the fact that they want to hold school board directors who are elected by their community accountable for these things, it's way over the top. And again, they do this every year. So something comes up they don't like, they find a way to push back, just like they did with 1296 when they, you know, took the initiative and rewrote the legislation and all that stuff.
And this afternoon, I received a response from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Rakedahl's office. I said, "Are you guys the ones that have pushed for the board to, make these changes and try to hold superintendents accountable if they're not compliant with your directive?" And this is the response I received. Says the complaint process has not yet been established, so no district leader has been found to have been willfully non-compliant. OSPI has been working in partnership with PESB on their required rulemaking. So I take that to mean that OSPI has been encouraging this board to, make sure that you're going to hold school district superintendents, accountable. If they're out of compliance with this bill, then we need to make sure that, we're holding them accountable, potentially removing them from their positions. So much going on here with the DOJ investigation. The voters are going to weigh in November. I would guess that there's probably not going to be a lot of push back and forth on this outside of this vote from the board, um, as far as any, rules out of compliance for any districts that OSPI is going to say, "I'm going to fine you or withhold your funding." I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're waiting for further salvos in this to take place. So that is it for today's episode of Washington in Focus. As always, thank you for watching. Join us again tomorrow. Have a great day.